Over on Jaguar Gator 8, a new college football video is out. In this video, we talk about a bizarre broadcasting controversy between ABC, Southern University, and the HBCUs, and how Southern single-handedly caused ABC to back out of their TV deal. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And now, on with our feature presentation. When a game ends and the home team loses, what usually happens? Well, it's usually one of two things. The home fans either leave their seats disappointed, and they don't really say anything. It's either a silence or a grumble or an exasperated sigh that runs throughout the stadium, as they just want to forget that this game ever happened. Or in some cases, they'll let their thoughts be known and boo their team off the field. Whether it's the first case or the second case, this is how it works 99% of the time that a team loses a game, especially a meaningful game that has a massive impact on the season. You're not going to see fans happy and cheering after a loss. That's just not how it works. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, where you'll see fans cheering and applauding after a loss because they either wanted to lose this game to get a better draft pick, or because they wanted to show their appreciation after the season. You'll see this a lot when teams empty the bench in basketball in a blowout during the postseason, or you'll see it after a great season in baseball and hockey. However, you'll rarely, if ever, see it in football. And if you were going to see this in football, it wouldn't be after a random regular season game in October, right? Well, may I introduce you to the fans of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags fans have done some great and well-known things to voice their support of the team. They got over 30,000 people in the middle of the night to cheer on the team when they landed from Denver after their upset victory in the 1996 divisional round. They got over 30,000 people to attend a pep rally just hours after beating Pittsburgh in the 2017 divisional round. And before Trevor Lawrence was even drafted by the Jaguars, they donated $10,000 to him so that he could buy a toaster, with the excess money going to charity. But this might be one of the more remarkable and incredible things that they've done that you might not know about. Because in 1995, following a loss to the Chicago Bears, Jags fans gave their team a standing ovation. A standing ovation after losing a regular season game in the middle of the season is almost unheard of, but Duval did just that nearly 3 decades ago. And this is the story behind one of the craziest fan moments in the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Before I talk about the actual moment in question, as well as why the fans were cheering, we need some context to understand how this game was going, and the importance of this game. It's October 15th, 1995. It's week 7 of the NFL season, and as we near the halfway point, we have an interconference matchup on our hands between the expansion Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chicago Bears. Aside from the historical implications of this game, like this being the first Jags game ever on Fox, and the first ever meeting between the two sides, this was a big game for the Jaguars. I'm not going to go over what this game meant for the Bears, since that's not the main purpose of this video. But for the Jags, they were exceeding expectations as an expansion team. Expansion teams were not supposed to do anything in their first year. In the Super Bowl era, there had been 6 expansion teams across the AFL and the NFL. None of them finished with more than 3 wins, with the 2 most recent ones being the 2-win Seattle Seahawks and the winless Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with one of Seattle's wins being against the Buccaneers, so that really doesn't count, since someone had to win the Expansion Bowl. As a side note, to learn more about Seattle's other win that season, click the card in the upper right corner. And while things definitely started off on those predictably shaky grounds for the Jaguars, as they started the season off 0-4, all of a sudden, they looked like they were potentially turning a corner. They went on the road to the Astrodome to take on the Houston Oilers, and after trailing 16-10 late in the fourth quarter, came back with under 2 minutes left to win it 17-16, winning their first game in franchise history. Then, they followed that up with one of the most stunning and surprising results of the entire 1995 season. Heck, aside from the Carolina Panthers somehow going into Candlestick Park to knock off the defending Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49ers, this game had to be the most shocking result of the entire year. Because in Week 6, the Jaguars, as 10.5-point underdogs, stunned the Pittsburgh Steelers by winning it 20-16 to improve to 2-4. Normally at 0-4, you're dead in the water. Only one team had ever made the playoffs after an 0-4 start. But for the Jaguars, who were only a game out of first place in the AFC Central, If they won this game against the Bears, then not only would they become the first expansion team to ever win 3 straight games, but they would legitimately be able to think about the playoffs. Yes, this game was a must-win game for Jacksonville, but I'm not sure anyone realistically thought that this game was even going to mean anything. The bad news for the Jaguars was that for the first 59 minutes of the game, it looked as though this expansion team that was flying high and taking the NFL by storm completely out of nowhere was crashing back down to earth. Jacksonville's defense, which had held its own for much of the season thus far and was surprisingly in the middle of the pack, couldn't stop a nosebleed on this day. They allowed a franchise-worst 30 points and a franchise-worst 380 yards, all while failing to force a turnover, and all while allowing quarterback Eric Kramer to play one of the best games of his career, as he threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, while posting a great passer rating of 120.6. The Bears went 9 for 15 on 3rd and 4th down conversions, and the Bears, who touched the ball 4 times in the second half, scored on all 4 possessions. Safe to say, you're not going to win too many games with that kind of porous defense. With under a minute left, the Bears were comfortably leading at 30-20, and the Jags had 4th down just past midfield. For the Jags to even have a shot at coming back, in the span of less than a minute, this expansion team was going to have to convert the 4th down play, then get another 30 or so yards to get into the end zone, hit the extra point, go for an onside kick, somehow recover the onside kick, then get another 15 or so yards, and then hit the game-tying field goal, all while having no timeouts to work with. It's an almost impossible string of events for any team, let alone an expansion team that has not been playing well thus far. For all intents and purposes, barring a miracle, this game was over. However, try telling that to the Jaguars. Try telling that to head coach Tom Coughlin, to quarterback Mark Brunell, and to everyone else on that team. Because the Jaguars were not giving up, and they were not going down without a fight. If their winning streak was going to come to an end, it was going to be with a bang, and was going to be because they went down swinging. Brunell hit Ernest Givens for a gain of 7 to convert the 4th down and keep the drive and the game alive. And a few plays later on 3rd down, he hit Cedric Tillman for a 23-yard touchdown. Following the extra point by Mike Hollis, the Jaguars were now only down 30-27. Still, there is a lot of work to do, as they had to recover an onside kick, which is an insanely low percentage play. No chance this works, right? Well, when Hollis kicked it off, and Mike Dumas somehow recovered, all of a sudden, you could have hope in Jacksonville. Chicago fans were starting to sweat a bit, as this game that they were in complete control of, in the blink of an eye, had been flipped on its head. The Jaguars, now down by 3 with about 30 seconds left, had the ball, needing just a field goal to tie it, and sent it into overtime. And after a few more passing plays, with Brunell hitting Tillman again on an 11-yard gain to get the Jaguars into Chicago territory, and with Brunell hitting Givens again on a big play to make it a manageable field goal, the Jaguars were in business, and had a legitimate shot at tying the game up. It all came down to a 54-yard field goal attempt by first-year kicker Mike Hollis. Make this kick, and you send it into overtime and keep your season alive. Miss this kick, and the comeback was all for nothing. And barring anything crazy, your season is over. The fate of Jacksonville is depending on you. And when it came time for the all-important field goal, Mike Hollis missed it. Heartbreaking. Easily the most heartbreaking moment at the time in Jags history. Granted, there were only 5 losses to choose from, but still, this one hurt. The Bears won this game by a final score of 30-27, and all the Jags were disappointed, with none being more disappointed than Mike Hollis, who missed the game tire as time expired in regulation. And the frustrating thing for Hollis was that he knew from the moment he hit it that it wasn't going to be good. And at this point, the rest of the kick and the ball's flight path was just delaying the inevitable. Hollis said on the kick, "It started to the left upright, and I knew it wasn't good. I didn't even watch it any further. It's a tough situation, and I don't feel terribly bad for missing it. It's a tough kick, and I tried my best, and it didn't go." The players were absolutely heartbroken, especially after how close they came to actually pulling this one off against all odds. The staff members and coaches were heartbroken to lose the game like this, and in the manner that they lost it. And in a normal world, you'd expect the fans to be completely heartbroken over this, with nothing but stunned silence ringing throughout the venue. To see your team that you were just starting to believe in crush your spirits like that, to see it come down to a missed field goal that likely ended any shot you had at competing for a playoff spot this season, even if not even the most optimistic Jags fan had them in the playoffs in year one, it just stinks. I've been at plenty of close Jags games where the Jags did not prevail thanks to a blunder on the final drive. And the atmosphere afterwards as you're leaving the seats and leaving the stadium is just depressing. I'm sure most of you have been to games where your team loses a close one and the atmosphere in the stadium afterwards is not pleasant. By all accounts, this absolutely should have been one of those games and one of those atmospheres. But something bizarre happened after Hollis missed that 54-yard game-tying field goal. Because after Hollis missed that kick, the crowd began to applaud and rose to their feet, not to leave the stadium, but to give the team a standing ovation. Take a listen.
It is wide left. And the Bears win by the score of 30-27. 54-yard attempt as time expired. No good by Hollis. But the Jaguars receiving a standing ovation from the crowd.
That's right. They were cheering. And it wasn't because the stadium was overtaken by Bears fans who were happy about the win. It was because the Jags fans were so proud of their team for fighting back that even if it didn't work out in the end, and even if they still came up short, they appreciated the effort. They appreciated the fact that this expansion team that started off 0-4 and had no business being in the position that they were in was just moments away, against all odds, from winning their third straight game. And it was almost similar to the scene in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original animated cartoon, and not the highly overrated Jim Carrey remake, where everyone witnessing it was confused afterwards, because the people impacted seemed happy when they should have been sad. Much like the Grinch was confused when he stole everyone's gifts, and everyone was still happy because the gifts weren't the point, there were people confused when the Jags lost, and everyone was still happy because after everything this city went through with trying to get a team, from trying to land one for 2 decades and failing, to all the fake relocation rumors with teams like the Patriots and the Colts, they were just so proud of their team for putting up a fight that it didn't matter to them that they lost. And after the game, starting center Dave Woodell talked about the 72,000 fans that gave his team a standing ovation, which is something that the 8-year veteran had never seen before after a loss. As Woodell said on the fans know when you're giving your all. I think they responded that to us with a standing O at the end of the game. And that's what makes this standing ovation perhaps one of the most remarkable fan moments in the history of the Jaguars, and maybe even the history of the NFL. Because in a league where there are no points given for trying your best, and where there are no such things as moral victories, Jags fans didn't care about that on this day. They were so proud of their team for everything they had done this season, and for almost pulling off a rather miraculous comeback, that they wanted to show their appreciation. And the fact that they lost the game, while it definitely hurt, didn't necessarily matter in the long run, and wasn't the most important thing. I'm not sure we're ever going to see anything like this again, where a team gets a standing ovation for losing a regular season game in the middle of the year, so it's not even an appreciation of a great year. But the message on this day in 1995 was clear. Win or lose, Jags fans will be there. And if you put a product out on the field that gives it their all and makes this city proud, then they will back them in full force, like only Duval knows how to do. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.